Okay, Paleo, I know you've got better things to do than go back and forth with me on YouTube, but I got your response. I appreciate your response, and it's based in logic, which is a lot more than can be said for a lot of other videos on here. But I got to take you up on a couple of these things. I can't just let you off that easy. I want to start with one of the last things that you said first, and that is that you say that people, our founding fathers understood that the more interdependent we were on others, the less independent we were, and the less sovereign we were. The more independent we were, the more sovereign we were. And everybody understood this up until the 1920s or so. Well, I hate to tell you this, I hate to throw fire in your soup over this, but that's totally wrong. Adam Smith's great manifesto on capitalism, The Wealth of Nations, in 1776, said something very similar to this. He was talking about the division of labor, like I did in my first video, and he was talking about how a family might trade with somebody else. They do what they're best at, and they allow somebody else to do what they're best at, and then they trade. He said, both parties wind up better off. He said something very similar to this. He said, what is prudent in the conduct of a small family can scarce be folly in the conduct of a great nation. So this was in 1776, and this was what a lot of the economic background and the economic thought process of our country came from. This libertarian capitalism view of economics was the prevailing thought pattern for our founding fathers. And Adam Smith understood this in 1776. You make this point that the same people were using these transitions between these different methods of production. Like Gutenberg took up the scribes and put them into working for his printing press. Henry Ford took up the old metal workers and smiths and made them into metal workers for the auto manufacturers. And I have to disagree with that. I can't agree with that. I mean, imagine all the books being produced by the scribes. I mean, that had to be, let's say the printing press was 10 times more efficient. They're automatically going to be out of work. Because if it was no better than scribes, the printing press wouldn't have even come into existence. I mean, he had to have savings over the scribes to even make it worth setting up a printing press. So, if there were 10 scribes used, I mean, he only needed 2 or 1 or 2 to run that press. 8 scribes had to be out of work. I mean, there's no way around that. And the smiths taking up metalworking for the auto manufacturers, what about the woodworkers? What about the people that made the cloth? I guess they made the cloth seats for the cars? I don't know. But what about the wood? The woodworkers on the carriage. I mean, this was a violent break for a lot of people. It was difficult for people that had been in the previous industries. They didn't just switch from making carriages to making cars, and they didn't just switch from writing on paper as scribes to operating Gutenberg's printing press. It was a very difficult process, and it's still a difficult process today, and I feel for people in that manner, but we can't stop the process from going on. I mean, even if we take take you on your point that it's this transition, that's what I'm trying to say. It is a transition. And what you're saying is where one man may be going out of work as an auto worker, and another man may be working at McDonald's, and he may be about to graduate with a degree in biotechnology. Now we no longer need this man in car working, but a job in biotechnology comes open, and that man comes from McDonald's and fills that void in biotechnology, and this other man may struggle, and he may take up that job at McDonald's. Instead of having a man working at McDonald's and a man working at the auto manufacturing, now we have a man working at McDonald's and a man working in the biotechnology industry. But what you want to do is you want to flip that around. You just want to transfer that guy from auto working over to biotechnology when he's not prepared for biotechnology. This man that's done all the preparation for biotechnology, you want to keep him down in McDonald's or some lower level entry position, and it's not fair. It's not fair for that man that's prepared. Okay? And you're going to say, well, it's not fair for the man that's been thrown out of the auto working industry. But that man has prepared himself to meet the demands of the market. And unfortunately, the man working for the auto manufacturer right now is not prepared to meet the demands for the market. I know right now my job is at risk every day because I'm in manufacturing of tires in a job that has gone globally competitive. And so if I were to lose my job, it would be very difficult, and I'd be very upset about it. But after realizing the overall grand scheme of things, I have not positioned myself well within this market. So those transitions take place. You say my point of view is only correct if there's no value to work in and of itself. And I say it exactly right. You are exactly right. But your point only makes my point more, and that is we do not live to work. When man sets about to live, he doesn't say, let me find something to work at. He says, let me find something to survive at. How does he survive? By consumption. It's through consumption that we find that life is sustainable, even from a biological standpoint. If you produce, and don't consume anything, you'll eventually die. But you could theoretically consume and never produce anything. If somehow you were able to sustain your consumption, you'd keep living. So consumption is the path through which we find a better life and a higher standard of living, not through production. We only produce because we want to get something. Okay? You talk about your Christian perspective on the value of work, and I respect that. I agree with it to the biggest point. But are you telling me that somehow I could work 1 hour and have 7 hours left over and still meet all the needs and pay my mortgage and my electricity bill? Or if I could just work and my wife could stay at home and take care of our son, that wouldn't be better than if me and my wife both had to work? Or if I could just work 1 hour of the day or 2 hours a day and still maintain the standard of living that I maintain right now, that wouldn't be better than me having to work 8 hours? You know, if people want something to do, what's to say that I couldn't work 2 hours if I'm a woodworker and I can meet all my needs by working 2 hours a day? I could go work 6 hours a day building churches for churches in the community. If I'm a cook and I can meet all my needs by cooking 1 hour a day, I can go cook the other 7 hours of the day for the homeless, you know. We can still find something of value to do with ourselves and to do with our lives, but it doesn't have to be for the purposes of surviving or in quote-unquote production. It can be things that we do out of the kindness of our heart for other people. You say, you know, that my point of view only works if I want to surround myself with more and more trinkets. And everybody always accuses me of this, of just, oh, you just want more and more stuff. It's all consumerism, materialism. But I just want to remind people, if they'll kindly remember, like I said, books, electricity, running water, air conditioning, the automobile, life-saving medical technology and advances, the computer, all these things that have greatly improved our life, nobody would question for a minute if they've improved our life, have come about through this process that I'm talking about. You say the best societies where the maximum amount of people are working. That's totally false. There was a time when societies were like that. People had to work. Living people had to work, including young children and including older people. They worked till they died, most of the time at back-breaking work. And even to the point that when people got old, they would rather than just go on die, rather than resuscitate them. Now it's at the point where children do not work. That used to be the common thing. When we outlawed child labor in this country, it was the first on the face of the earth. Because children had to work, because life was hard. There were not enough resources. Children had to work. Now it's commonly considered that by the age of 65, or if not before, people will retire and live out the rest of their years in leisure. That was never possible before. So you have these whole segments of the population, the child section of the population and the elderly, that no longer have to work. And would it be better if all of a sudden we had such a hard life that in order to meet the demands of life, we had to put them back to work? Of course not. Of course not. And I'm running out of time, but I have to say right quickly, and this is from, you got to read Frederick Bastiat, Economic Sophisms or Sophisms. I get a lot of my stuff from him. He says this: if this situation that I talk about over with the 5 people had somehow happened where I was situated up against a river that represented a border of a country, and the baker lived on the other side of that river, and we made all those same trades, except for I walked across a bridge to make the trade with the baker, would it be any less beneficial to either party? Would it mean that I was somehow less of a nationalist, or somehow I had less patriotism or less pride in my nation? No, it would all still be the same. The locations of the parties are not what's important. It's individuals trading with one another to attain a better standard of life. And I'm out of time, so I hope that's answered some of your points.